This is the Queen of Politics edition of The Erin Cruz Show, the political weekly wrap-up that packs a punch with your host, Erin Cruz.
Good evening and welcome to the Erin Cruz Show, coming to you live from beautiful Palm Springs, California. This is Queen of Politics. Actually, it's Political Core. We've taken over Queen of Politics night tonight to bring you a story and a message from a couple of days ago. And I am your hostess, Erin Cruz. Thank you for joining me. Tonight's topic is a trip about Trump, a bomb, and more media lies. We also have an update on where ObamaCare and the AHCA stands in Congress. And I want to thank all of my listeners, my faithful friends and followers and fellow patriots. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys being so patient with me while I get the platform up and running. We had a few changes this last week, and I am looking forward to going out independently, as I am now, and looking for a permanent home. So thank you for following me in this journey. If you ever have any suggestions, I'm always here. You have a topic you want to listen to, go ahead and share it with me. I'm open always. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight about Trump's trip. It really seems like last year already, with the last 48 hours and the rollout of Manchester and what's happened, as a result of the bombing. And I'm sure most of you know what happened. There was bombing right after a concert put on by Ariana Grande, and 22 people were killed, and 100 plus were brutally injured. But we'll get into that in just a few minutes. But Trump went on his first overseas tour representing our great nation, and the media couldn't make up its mind how they want to report on this issue. I mean, he had a resounding welcome from Saudis, from Israel, when we saw him over in Brussels. I mean, the red carpet was rolled, and I think it wasn't rolled out for just Trump. It was rolled out for a new era, a new time, a time for growth and opportunity, a time where borders would be respected, other nations would be respected, and we could all take our rightful place in this world, and bring in a new time of opportunity with those sorts of rule of law being respected. Other nations, I think, appreciate that, and it really is a good time. But I think that watching him not bow, watching him graciously accept their hospitality of all people who seem to bring him into their country, I mean, it felt like we were actually represented. Make America great again. No. Make America great again is in our mind, in our actions, but also in our mind. What we've seen the last 8 years is a place where, America was great, but it was brought to the place of apologizing for past either wrongs or unwrongs or whatever it might have been. And this huge apology tour, and it was just so wonderful seeing Trump go across the sea amongst other world leaders and having good, solid conversations, seeing partnerships strengthened, seeing, the people's response too to his visiting their nation. It was, I believe, unbelievable. But the media didn't want to have that. The media, in many cases, were showing all sorts of excerpts and cuts out and of his visit, and it was unfortunate that they couldn't just grasp the fact that maybe we're turning a new leaf. We are going to make best strides to take this nation into the next 8 years, 4 years for sure, but 8 years with, more jobs, which we've already seen, less debt, which we've already seen, reforms in healthcare to drive prices down, which we're trying to do, and the media is pushing back on. I mean, Dodd-Frank, adjusting those measures, we're trying to do that, cutbacks in the EPA and overreach, which we'll touch on that a little bit later. The FCC, I mean, freedom of, net neutrality was a big one that Obama pushed, and I can't believe that his base didn't push back harder. We're seeing, Trump break barriers that, it's just outside of his 100 days. It's phenomenal. We're not even 6 months through the year, and we're already seeing massive gains. So, anytime the media gets their head in there, it seems to be always drawn on the negative. And we need to combat that. And so what I was thinking is, many of you may have only seen clips of Trump's speech, excerpts here or there, put it all over the media, especially since the bombing happened. I've seen all sorts of things coming out of context. So I want to read a great deal of Trump's speech. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I think you'll get the gist of when I am reading it. I think that it was long, but it's definitely worth taking a look at. And I think, especially because when Trump spoke, he spoke on Islam. All right, he was in Saudi Arabia. This is a speech from Saudi Arabia. He spoke on Islam and their role within the realm of radical extremists, as many call them. I call them, devout and devout Muslims. But he spoke about the need for Islam to step up to the plate, take responsibility, and condemn the actions of those people around the world that are making Islam look bad, that are hurting innocent people. And I think the way he addressed it was exemplary. I mean, it was just out of this world. But I really want to read this speech, because if you only did get those blurbs, if you only did hear a little bit of what he had to say, even the media and their reporting of this, as I read it, the article from CNN, and I'll post that in the reference section, which I always do, in the media, when they did their transcripts, they emphasized words in a way, and they made it kind of annotations in the way that they print it, that is just inappropriate, and it's even slanted in a transcript. It's just, folks, we have a media that is out of control right now. Out of control. And the only way for us to do anything is to push back. The only way for us to do anything is to push back. We have to stop clicking on their links. I am sharing CNN for an example, but, and I think people need to see this, but as a whole, we have to stop clicking their links, clicking their ads, clicking their shopping things, clicking anything that would give them any sort of revenue, because right now we're losing Fox News. Since the children have taken over and the father died, we have to take back the media, and the only way to do that is to starve the big guys and give energy to the people who are going to be reporting appropriate. For example, Hannity and some other even conservative talk show people, people even centrists, and news outlets like What American News Network, and some kind of more smaller niche type organizations. But we have to do something, because this what I'm seeing in this transcript is just it's irresponsible, and it's outright blatant, and we shouldn't stand for this. We need to push back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get to it, and you can learn for yourself about all these things by reading the references that I give to you, and really seeing it for yourself. If you hear people talking about these things and talking about who said what, when, where, why, how, where did they see it? Okay, who was presenting it, and did they verify it? I mean, you can't just blurb out the side of your cheek these days, people. The news out there is shady and it's jaded. So I'm going to go ahead and read what CNN wrote, which is accurate, and I will bounce in and out of this speech as we go along. Again, this is the speech that Trump gave when he was in Saudi Arabia. Here we go, folks. I want to thank King Salman for his extraordinary words and the magnificent kingdom of Saudi Arabia for hosting today's summit. I am honored to be received by such gracious hosts. I have always heard about the splendor of your country and the kindness of your citizens, but words do not do justice the grandeur of this remarkable place and the incredible hospitality you have shown us from the moment we arrived. You also hosted me in the treasured home of King Abdulaziz. I can never say his name. Please forgive me. The founder of the kingdom, who united your great people, working alongside another beloved leader, American President Franklin Roosevelt. King began enduring partnership between our two countries. King Salman, your father would be so proud to see that you are continuing his legacy. And just as he opened the first chapter in our partnership, today we bring a new chapter, and that will bring lasting benefits to our citizens. Let me now also extend my deep and heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of the distinguished heads of state who made this journey here today. You greatly honor us with your presence, and I send the warmest regards from my country to yours. I know that our time together will bring many blessings to both your people and mine. I stand before you as a representative of the American people to deliver a message of friendship and hope. This is why I chose to make my first foreign visit to a trip to the heart of the Muslim world, to the nation that serves as custodian of the two holiest sites in the Islamic faith. In my inaugural address to the American people, I pledged to strengthen America's oldest friendships and to build new partnerships in pursuit of peace. I also promised that America will not seek to impose our way of life on others, but outstretch our hands in the spirit of cooperation and trust. Our vision is one of peace, security, and prosperity in this region and in the world. Our goal is a coalition of nations who share the aim of stamping out extremism and providing our children a hopeful future that does honor to God. So this historic and unprecedented gathering of leaders, unique in the history of nations, is a symbol to the world of our shared resolve and our mutual respect. To the leaders and our citizens of every country assembled here today, I want you to know that the United States is eager to form closer bonds of friendship, security, culture, and commerce. For Americans, this is an exciting time. A new spirit of optimism is sweeping our country. In just a few months, we've created almost 1 million new jobs, added over $3 trillion of new value, lifted the burdens of American industry, and made record investments in our military that will protect the safety of our people and enhance the security of our wonderful friends and allies, many of whom are here today. Now, there is even more blessed news I'm pleased to share with you. My meetings with King Salman, the Crown Prince, and the Deputy Crown Prince have been filled with great warmth, goodwill, and tremendous cooperation. Yesterday, we signed a historic agreement with the kingdom that will invest almost $400 billion in our two countries and create many thousands of jobs in America and Saudi Arabia. This landmark agreement includes the announcement of a $110 billion Saudi-funded defense purchase, and we will be sure to help our Saudi friends get a good deal from our great American defense companies, an agreement that will help the Saudi military to take a greater role in security operations. I'm going to halt there for a minute. I'm not sure how thrilled I am about that part. I really have some strong reservations about their interactions and allowing them to have such a powerful military clout. However, I'm not in charge, but that does raise some eyebrows. They have more than enough money to buy whatever they want. They should invest and they should buy it themselves and compete just like anybody else. They can get a better deal somewhere else, they need to go there. But in any case, that's a tangent. But I'm just also not too thrilled about the numbers right there. But we can go into that another time. We'll get back to the speech. We have also started discussions with many of the countries present today in strengthening partnerships and forming new ones to advance security and stability across the Middle East and beyond. Later today, we will make history again with the opening of a new global center for combating extremist ideology, located right here in the central part of the Islamic world. This groundbreaking new center represents a clear declaration that Muslim-majority countries must take the lead in combating radicalization, and I want to express our gratitude to King Salman for this strong demonstration of leadership. I agree. I have had the pleasure of welcoming several of the leaders present today to the White House, and I look forward to working with all of you. America is a sovereign nation, and our first priority is always the safety and security of our citizens. We are not here to lecture. We are not here to tell other people how to live, what to do, where to be, or how to worship. Instead, we are here to offer partnership based on shared interests and values to pursue a better future for all of us. For us all. Here at this summit, we will discuss many interests we share together, but above all, we must be united in pursuit of one goal that transcends every other consideration. That goal is to meet history's great test, to conquer extremism and vanquish the forces of terrorism. Young Muslim boys and girls should be able to grow up free from fear, safe from violence, and innocent of hatred. And young Muslim men and women should have the chance to build a new era of prosperity for themselves and their people. With God's help, this summit will mark the beginning and the end for those who practice terror and spread its vile creed. At the same time, we pray this special gathering may someday be remembered as being a peace in the Middle East and maybe even all over the world. But this future can only be achieved through defeating terrorism and ideology that drives it. Few nations have been spared its violent reach. America has suffered repeated barbaric attacks, from the atrocities of September 11th to the devastation of the Boston bombing, to the historic killings in San Bernardino and Orlando. The nations of Europe have also endured unspeakable horrors. You have to remember this is just a few days before Manchester, and it almost echoes in my soul how it's going to take some time and a huge effort to figure out exactly how they're approaching this war and to seek out those who aim to harm others and innocent people. Let's get back to the speech. The nations of Europe have also endured unspeakable horror. So too have the nations of Africa and even South America. India, Russia, China, and Australia have been victims. But in sheer numbers, the deadliest toll has been exacted on the innocent people of Arab, Muslim, and Middle Eastern nations. They have borne the brunt of the killings and the worst of the destruction in this wave of fanatical violence. Some estimates hold that more than 95% of the victims of terrorism are Muslims themselves. We now face a humanitarian and security disaster in this region that is spreading across the planet. It is a tragedy of epic proportions. No description of the suffering and depravity can begin to capture its full measure. The true toll of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Hamas, and so many others must be counted not only in the number of dead. It must be counted in the generations of vanished dreams. The Middle East is rich with natural beauty, vibrant cultures, and massive amounts of historic treasures. It should increasingly become one of the greatest global centers of commerce and opportunity. This region should not be a place from which refugees flee, but to which newcomers flock. Saudi Arabia is home to the holiest of cities and one of the world's greatest faiths. Each year, millions of Muslims come from around the world to Saudi Arabia and take part in Hajj. In addition to ancient wonders, this country is also home to modern ones, including soaring achievements in architecture. Egypt was a thriving center of learning and achievement thousands of years before other parts of the world. The wonders of Giza, Luxor, Alexandria are proud monuments to that ancient heritage. All over the world, people dream of walking through the ruins of Petra and Jordan. Iraq, with the cradle of civilization, is a land of natural beauty. So this goes on to talk about the different aspects of what's, kind of going on over there, and kind of trying to tap into where we need this thing to go with those Arab nations. I want to get back into what he's talking about Islam. So every time a terrorist, he says, murders an innocent person and falsely invokes the name of God, it should be an insult to every person of faith. Terrorists who do not worship God, they worship death. If we do not act against this organized terror, then we know what will happen. Terrorism's devastation of life will continue to spread. Peaceful societies will become engulfed by violence, and the futures of many generations will sadly be squandered. If we do not stand in uniform condemnation of this killing, then not only will we be judged by our people, not only will we be judged by history, but we will be judged by God. This is not a battle between different faiths, different sects, or different civilizations. This is a battle between barbaric criminals who seek to obliterate human life and decent people of all religions who seek to protect it. This is a battle between good and evil. When we see the scenes of destruction in the wake of terror, we see no signs that those murdered were Jews or Christian or Shia or Sunni. When we look upon the streams of innocent blood soaked in the ancient ground, we cannot see the faith or sect or tribe of the victims. We see only that they were children of God, whose deaths are an insult to all that is holy. But we can only overcome this evil if the forces of good are united and strong, and if everyone in this room does their fair share and fulfills their part of the burden. Terrorism has spread across the world, but that path to peace begins right here, on this ancient soil, in this sacred land. America is prepared to stand with you in pursuit of shared interests and common security, but the nations in the Middle East cannot wait for America to crush this enemy for them. The nations of the Middle East will have to decide what kind of future they want for themselves, for their countries, and for their children. It is a choice between two futures, and it is a choice America cannot make for you. A better future is only possible if your nations drive out the terrorists and extremists. Drive them out. Drive them out of your places of worship. Drive them out of your communities. Drive them out of your holy land, and drive them out of this earth. For our part, America is committed to adjusting our strategies to meet evolving threats and new facts. We will discard those strategies that have not worked and apply new approaches informed by experience and judgment. We are adopting a principled realism rooted in common values and shared interests. Our friends will never question our support, and our enemies will never doubt our determination. Our partnerships will advance security through stability, not through radical disruption. We will make decisions based on real-world outcomes, not inflexible ideology. We will be guided by the lessons and experience, not of the confines of rigid thinking, and wherever possible, we will seek gradual reforms, not sudden intervention. We must seek partners, not perfection, and to make allies of all who share our goals. Above all, America seeks peace, not war. Muslim nations must be willing to take on the burden if we are going to defeat terrorism and send its wicked ideology into oblivion. The first task in this joint effort is for nations, your nations, to deny all territory to the foot soldiers of evil. Every country in the region has an absolute duty to ensure that terrorists find no sanctuary on their soil. Many are already making significant contributions to regional security. Jordanian pilots are crucial partners against ISIS in Syria and Iraq. Saudi Arabia and the regional coalition have taken strong action against militants in Yemen. The Lebanese army is hunting ISIS operatives who try to infiltrate their territory. It goes into the different battles. It goes into kind of what's been going on in recent. And then he says, means of honesty confronting the crisis of Islamist extremism and Islamic terror groups it inspires. It means standing together against the murder of innocent Muslims, the oppression of women, the persecution of Jews, and the slaughter of Christians. Religious leaders must make this absolutely clear. Barbarianism will deliver you no glory. Piety to evil will bring you no dignity. If you choose the path of terror, your life will be empty. Your life will be brief. Your soul will be condemned. And political leaders must speak out to affirm the same idea. Heroes don't kill innocents, they save them. Many nations here today have taken important steps to raise that message up. Saudi Arabia's vision for 2030 is an important and encouraging statement of tolerance, respect, empowering women, and economic development. The United Arab has also engaged in the battle for hearts and souls, and with the U.S. has launched a center for counter the online spread of hate. Bahrain is too working to undermine recruitment and radicalism. I also applaud Jordan, Turkey, and Lebanon for their role in hosting refugees. The surge of migrants and refugees living in the Middle East depletes the human capital needed to build stable societies and economies. Instead of depriving this region of so much human potential, Middle Eastern countries can give young people hope for a brighter future in their home nations and regions. That means promoting the aspirations and dreams of all citizens who seek a better life, including women and children and followers of all faiths. Numerous Arab and Islamic scholars have eloquently argued that protecting equality strengthens Arab and Muslim countries. For many centuries, the Middle East has been home to Christians, Muslims, Jews living side by side. We must practice tolerance and respect for one another again and make this region a place where every man and woman, no matter their faith or ethnicity, can enjoy a life of dignity and hope. In that spirit, after concluding my visit, I will travel to Jerusalem and Bethlehem and then to the Vatican, visiting many of the holiest places in the three Abrahamic faiths. If these three faiths can join together in cooperation, then peace in this world is possible, including peace between Israeli and Palestinians. I will be meeting with both Israeli Prime Minister and Palestinian President, starving terrorists of their territory, their funding, and the false allure of their craven ideology will be the basis for defeating them. But no discussion of stamping out this threat would be complete without mentioning a government that gives all terrorists all three safe harbor, financial backing, and social standing needed for recruitment. It is a regime that is responsible for so much instability in the region. I am speaking, of course, of Iran. From Lebanon to Iraq to Yemen, Iran funds, arms, and trains terrorists, militias, and other extremist groups that spread destruction and chaos across the region. For decades, Iran has fueled the fires of sectarian conflict and terror. It is a government that speaks openly of mass murder, vowing the destruction of Israel, death to America, and the ruin for many leaders and nations in this room. Among Iran's most tragic and destabilizing interventions have been in Syria. Bolstered by Iran, Assad has committed unspeakable crimes, and the United States has taken firm action in response to use the banned chemical weapons by Assad regime. So they go on to the instability, and I think we want to move on down through the speech. Where he goes to talk about, we in this room are the leaders of our people. They look to us for answers and for action. And when we look back at their faces, behind every pair of eyes is a soul that yearns for justice. Today, billions of faces are now looking at us, waiting for us to act on the great question of our time. Will we be indifferent to the presence of evil? Will we protect our citizens from its violent ideology? Will we let its venom spread through our societies? Will we let it destroy the most holy sites on earth? If we do not confront this deadly terror, we know what the future will bring, more suffering and despair. But if we act, if we leave this magnificent room unified and determined to do what it takes to destroy the terror that threatens the world, then there is no limit to the great future our citizens will have. The birthplace of civilization is waiting to begin a new renaissance. Just imagine what tomorrow could bring. Glorious wonders of science and art and medicine and commerce to inspire humankind. Great cities built on the ruins of shattered towns. New jobs and industries that will lift up millions of people. Parents who no longer worry for their children, and families who no longer mourn for their loved ones. And the faithful who finally worship without fear. These are the blessings of prosperity and peace. These are the desires that burn within a righteous flame in every human heart. And these are just demands of our beloved peoples, I ask you to join me, to join together, to work together, and to fight together, because united, we will not fail. Thank you. God bless you. God bless your countries, and God bless the United States of America. So that rounds out Trump's speech. And I think I'd like to make a point here. We don't have too much more time together, but I'd like to make a point here that Trump, he calls on Islamic nations to fight against those within their groups that are hurting others. Now, that sounds like a good idea, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. But as we saw 2 days later, someone went into a crowded venue and unspeakably blew up children and families. 22 of them, and over 100 hurt. But I have to tell you right now, and I'm going to be very honest with you, okay? This is not a lone sick person. This is just one person of many people out there who believe in the war against infidel, who believe in their faith and will go to the end in death, do what they have to do for their faith. And that's something that we have to think about. This is not a war against a nation that is mad at you because you did X, Y, and Z. No. This is a fundamental belief system. This is a religious, or in many ways, people see it as a cult. These are ideologies. These are cultural inflictions upon peoples, generation upon generation, familial birthing into Islam, and as a Muslim, right when you come out, you're born of a Muslim, you are a Muslim. These people, many of them don't know what they're involved in, and many of them do. And what I have to say right now is that when we have a man going to a venue like that and blowing up children and families, the war is not just on those dead and those wounded, okay? The 22 people who died, their friends, their family, their neighbors, those are not just the ones hurt, okay? The ones injured, their family members, their neighbors, their community members, those people aren't just hurt. Every girl, boy, and person who went through that traumatic experience in that venue will be impacted forever. The war of Islam is the goal, and the war of the mind of man. They are battling on all fronts, raping women, blowing up large spaces. They are impacting the minds of men and women and children all over the world. And in this case, our most vulnerable, the children. They are scarred, their minds hurt, broken, ripped with visions that they should never have had to see. All right? They will then go on in their lives and grow up, many of them not even remembering, many of them having nightmares and remembering too much. And they will go off to have children of their own, and everything they've experienced in their life will impact their family. This is a war on the minds of the people of this planet against the goodness and loving nature of people from many countries all over the world, all right? This is an attempt to break down other societies that are not Muslim. This is a war of the minds. And so what I would have to do right now is seeing what I've seen about some of these memes that have come out and all of these other, pop stars that have come out and said things, various things. I have to tell you, right now we need to combat that. We need to combat it with peace. We need to combat it with love. We need to combat it with understanding. And you know what? We have to do it in a way that does not show that we are weak. Okay? Because right now we have the people watching. We have people watching how we're behaving. And what I see is a divided and fractured country, especially here in the United States, okay? I see liberals saying tolerance, tolerance, coexist, after Muslims have blown up and impacted tens upon thousands of minds and people for the rest of their lives. Okay, one person has done this in conjunction with, I'm sure, others who helped along the way. But it isn't good enough to just point out the liberals. Conservatives and other people have also bit into it and taken it to the level of saying that all Muslims are bad. I have to say that Islam is bad. Islam is bad news bears. Now, I know that many religions have helped people over the years, but the one distinction that I would like to say about Islam is that it has a war component. Okay, it wouldn't be so bad if it did all of many things that it stands for. It could help people. I don't disagree with that, and I think that there are many people who follow it as a faith and don't follow it to the depth that these religious devotees do. But when we look at Islam, it has a war component, and it's the fifth pillar of Islam. It's called Zakat, and basically, I can never pronounce it, but it's the fifth pillar of Islam, and basically their offerings go toward the furthering of Islam, which would include jihad, which would include reaching out and radicalizing people or taking them to that next level, which would include all sorts of areas. Now, this is something where, we don't see this in other sorts of religions, okay? And Islam, the people of Islam, the nations of Islam, all of these people have a responsibility in their mosques to make sure that they're not contributing to the aspects of the religion that will kill, that have killed, that have been killing. They need to ensure that the peoples within their walls, their neighbors, their friends, that their actions, okay, if they know that somebody is going to do something wrong, that they need to create a hierarchy within their system to ensure that their religion stays a peaceful religion. Okay, that's my view on that. And in the case of those hurt and wounded as a result of this terror attack and many others, I know many people still are suffering from 9/11. We need to reach out to them. We need to provide support to them. We have to look at this as a long-term issue that we need to immediately address, and nations need to address as a whole. They, like Trump said, I applaud him, they need to look at fresh ways to combat the enemy, because currently we aren't. Now, with that, I would really like to say that I want to get into the federal government. I know that's a sad subject we were talking on, but I want to get into the federal government and overreach. I read a story the other day about spiders, and basically it was about creepy crawly things that make you squeak in the dark. It's really quite insane. It's an article written by George Will, and it talks about local spiders and the regulation of interstate commerce. A blind spider creeping through America's judicial thicket might be heading to the Supreme Court, which will have to decide the contentment or even if the survival of the bone cave harvestman spider species, which lives only in 2 central Texas counties. It is of the federal government's business, apparently. No. Is it the federal government's business? This is just outrageous. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which administers the Endangered Species Act, is basically taking action against John Yearwood that he can't do anything on his ranch that's been in his family since 1871, okay? Yearwood must surmount, upon other things, a precedent involving Roscoe Filburn, an Ohio farmer who in 1942 lost in the Supreme Court, mocked the doctrine that the federal government is one of limited because enumerated powers, okay? So basically right there, I can go into this in depth, but they talk about the Constitution's Commerce Clause, okay, and stabilizing prices that the government has set to protect quotas of wheat, and a ruling of past, okay, and basically this guy, he was so angry, he decided to produce 269 bushels outside of his quota and refusing to pay the fine. His insubordination, basically, he got in big trouble. All right. You want to know why he got in big trouble? Because that wheat never reached the interstate commerce. Because that wheat never helped anyone. They couldn't buy it. So I'm going to quote him right here. Supplies a need of the man who grew it, which would otherwise be reflected in purchases on the open market. Homegrown wheat, in this sense, competes with wheat in commerce. In other words, don't buy, you got to go out and buy lettuce. You can't grow your own. You want to know why? Because if you're growing your own, you're not buying lettuce from the store, you're affecting commerce. So your land effectively shouldn't be used for that. That is punk diggity dog. No, 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 no. So if we go down, so this is a prior ruling. But this other guy, this guy with the spiders, I mean, it's just so sad. Pretty much what he used to do is he used to bring kids on his land. He used to lease his land out, and have for free. And 4-H, church, military groups, camping, horseback riding, everything. And he stopped. Okay? And he's even stopped clearing the brush, because he didn't want to face federal prosecution for, as this guy who writes this story says, for, quote, disturbing, harming, or endangering the spiders. Okay? The government is more worried about the spiders from other bugs, okay, than anything else. I mean, this is just outrageous. So pretty much the government can do anything it wants with your land and tell you can't do anything with it. They can stop you for doing things with it. You name it. I mean, where is the end? Okay, so they're going to take a look at this. They're going to go a little bit deeper, and hopefully it makes it to the Supreme Court, because I think we're in a really good position to start taking action on these things. Because really, through Obama's administration, we saw guys digging ditches in their fields to make a pond, and they pretty much got smacked with huge fines. We've seen, I mean, you can talk about, there's a list of people who have been persecuted for, just doing the right thing, or, grazing their cattle and what have you. The government is out of control. And the first thing we need to do, Trump is only, 5 months in, he needs to go ahead and take action against this horrible, horrible overreach. Anyway, I thought you'd find that interesting. You can go ahead and read the article yourself and pass the news on it. Hopefully it'll get a lot of light. As for Obamacare, Democrats have pretty much put on Alinsky tactics. If you don't know what that means, please look Alinsky up. They're distracting us from everything to bury what they're actually doing, undermining the president from within quietly, and stopping us from taking action on Obamacare. I've heard that Obamacare may be a few months before we get to revise it and really move forward on anything. We need to put on pressure. I don't care what's going on. You need to call your congressman. You need to call them and let them know what you want. You need to ask them where they stand. You need to pressure them, okay? We've got to get this done. We need our prices to go down. We need more food on our table, more freedom, okay? So let's take a look, lastly, at the tragedy in Manchester and Ariana Grande. We need to stay focused, folks. This girl, all the things around Katy Perry saying no barriers, no borders, we all need to coexist, that's just a bunch of crap, okay? She's all dolled up when mothers have children missing. It's disturbing, yes, but the only way we can combat that is by doing the right thing, saying the right thing, and acting in the right way. We need to band together, we need to do what's right, and we need to be proper and not lose our minds or our focus. So stay vigilant, but also stay polite. As always, I will give you the info and resources used in the show, along with contacts and phone numbers of Congress. I hope you all are ready. The number to Congress is 202-224-3121. You can also reach your congressperson at house.gov, senate.gov. You can also look up other resources on my website, which is www.erincruz.com, or send me an email or an inquiry to info@erincruz.com. I know we move through everything quickly, but I'm always available to you if you have questions or just want to talk about things a little bit more in depth with me. I'll be glad to get back and respond to you. I do. Every single time I hear from you guys, and I've been hearing from quite a few people the last couple weeks, so it's been really quite wonderful. As always, we want to grow together. We want to find common solutions, find common ground. And I will answer any questions I can. Do not hesitate to reach out, all right? Because we are in this together. And I just want to reaffirm that. I also want to reaffirm one last thing before I close the show just right now. It came to my mind, and I can't help but just take this time. And this is hard for me to really talk about, actually, because I really wasn't going to. We are a people, a united people, and I think it's important for us to recognize that we all have a role to play. And while I am conservative, I have friends who are liberals alike, and I want to say that more now than ever, it doesn't matter your religion or your race or your sex or anything else, okay? It doesn't matter your political party. Right now, we have to learn how to converse. We need to actually learn how to get along. Coexistence, not amongst Islam and other religions of the world. No. I've said a lot about where I stand on Islam. But coexistence, we have to be more tolerant of one another. We have to learn how to get along and communicate within our own country, within our own political sphere. We aren't getting along. We're letting the media distract us. We're letting these sorts of things impact our families. And I think it's really super important that we take the time to listen to one another, where each one of us are coming from, okay? It's important. We're fractured right now because we aren't. We're so busy, stuck on our own thinking, that we aren't listening to the person across from us. And in many cases, people don't want to listen, and they just want to push their point on here. And you don't have to tolerate intolerance. But I think it's important to appropriately communicate with people and to let them know where you're coming from after they've explained where they're coming from, and let them know that you understand what they're trying to say and reaffirm what they're trying to say, and then let them know where you're coming from, and let them know what you think about what they just told you, and share with them why you think the way you do. And I think more often than not, you're going to get the occasional person, but more often than not, we can have conversations, okay? We can make and break ground on this, but it takes time, it takes effort, and you got to care enough. You have to care enough. And I know I don't usually talk about this, but I've been working on a couple of projects now, and they're coming to fruition, and I'm really super excited. Keep your eyes out on my website. I've been working on several things that I think are really going to aid in communication and help people, specifically women. And we've got to do something, folks. It's just, we can't continue on this trajectory of pointing the finger and not being a part of the solution. We also have to fight back. It's not okay just to nod our heads and be quiet and sit still, especially as conservatives. Just because you're a conservative does not mean that you take abuse or allow yourself to be subject to any sort of, things that you don't believe in, because you're an adult and you can make choices for yourself. And especially with the media and reaching into our homes, reaching into our lives, providing us with inaccurate information and influencing our children, schools influencing our children, all these different aspects in our lives and influencing us and the generations to come. You can fight back, and the fight comes from within your own mind, and within your own actions. And so look out for what's going to be coming in terms of the projects I'm working on. I'll definitely keep everyone up to date. But we've just got to care enough. We've just got to care enough. And it doesn't matter. I'm going to say this again. I just said this 5 minutes ago. It doesn't matter if you're conservative and you believe in X, and you know another conservative and you don't agree with them because they believe in Y. Look, you have to set aside the small things. We have to unite against the front, which is trying to tear down our great nation, period, end of story. There are too many people looking to see us fail, to drag us through the mud and watch us be depleted. Okay? We have to unite on all fronts. That means rival talk show hosts uniting and showing solidarity with one another for a common goal of peace and prosperity for the nation. That means families getting together, even though maybe they've been fragmented, and setting aside some of those differences and being a family and showing good values to their children. It means reaching out to people who maybe you were upset with about certain things politically and just saying, we don't agree. We will never probably agree, but I want to tell you that you matter to me. And I don't agree with you, but you matter to me. And by the testimony of your life, you will hopefully make a reflection on that person, and they will go ahead and they may see through the test of time the evidence of your life and be open to what you see and why, because they see in your life that you are different, that you stand by your principles, but that you're open to understand the human condition and that you love beyond all else, family and friends, and you want your life to be that testimony. And I'm telling you, it will pierce the hearts of man. And if you're a Christian, I also encourage you to pray on these things, because nothing else can do more but the power of prayer, the Holy Spirit going before you and paving the way for good conversations and prosperity in relationships. I'm telling you, it's happened to me time and time again, where I thought nothing can happen and everything did. So I hope everybody has had a good night and enjoyed the show. I know we went a little bit fast, but there was a lot to cover that I wanted to hit on. I want to thank you all for joining me, Erin Cruz, on this edition of the Queen of Politics, where political core took over. Woo-hoo! It's the Erin Cruz Show. Join me again next Tuesday, all right, 7 to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Political Core, where we get to the core of the issues that matter to you with information you can use to make positive change in your community, in your state, and in your nation. Have a blessed evening, all. God bless you, and God bless America.
To hear more and to learn more on how you can make an impact or about the Queen of Politics and the Erin Cruz Show, visit us online at erincruz.com. That's ERINCRUZ.com. Thank you for joining us, and see you at the same time and the same place next week.